It's high time for us to discover how the fastest growing hardware company on the planet Earth operates. And please welcome the chair of the board at the Agile Business Institute, Joy. Hello.
Hello, good day. I'm Joe Justice. It's my honor to be collaborating with Intellias today.
It's such an honor having you here. Please, the stage is yours.
You're very kind. Thank you. Thank you very much. Pardon the equipment behind me. I was just doing pull-ups to prepare. I'm Joe Justice. I worked directly with Bill Gates. I was a Scrum Master for a team that Bill Gates was on. And then I consulted to the leadership team at Amazon when Jeff Bezos was CEO. And then I operated the Agile program at Tesla for Elon Musk. And what I'd like to show you today is what I learned operating Agile at Tesla and being shocked by the Agile practices in that company. I'll zoom out here. And can anyone see something that says Agile Hardware Developer? I'm getting some feedback. It looks like yes. Okay. I'd been teaching certified Scrum Master classes for, well, what, 10 years almost? And I'd made it a game where you clear islands in order to learn Scrum. And I realized that Agile had moved way past what the Scrum Guide or Scrum at Scale or the Scaled Agile Framework was currently mandating. And a lot of skillful trainers were adding in the missing content. I started making the certified Scrum Master courses so that 1/3 was Scrum, sometimes even 2 hours, and everything else was the engineering practices, the certified Scrum developer practices, the XP practices, the extreme manufacturing practices that made it work. In the product owner class, it was even more stressed. It was even more changed. 1/3 of the class is Scrum. The second third is how to run a more advanced Agile company. And then the last third, going to the rainbow castle in the sky, was how to run a company the way Elon Musk runs a company. And I realized there was still demand for people to understand how a company like Elon Musk operates. And that became the Agile Hardware Developer Program. It's a 12-step program for a company that's making hardware to move towards how the Musk companies make hardware. What I'd like to show is the gap between the Scrum Guide and what the Musk companies are doing. I'll zoom in here. This is step 2, pace of innovation. At the bottom of the pace of innovation arrow, we have annual budgets. If our budgets are allocated in a year or more, that is the cadence at which we can make a significant change in direction for the company. That's nothing like the speed the Musk companies operate. If BMW, Daimler, Toyota, Mitsubishi, Seat, Fiat, Skoda, if they make a minor model change, that's every 2.5 years on average. And a major model change is every 5 to 7 years on average. So a 1 year or longer budget is very appropriate for those companies. Tesla releases 60 new parts into production a day. That's more significant than most companies' minor model change cycles every 2.5 years. And that's every day. To keep maintainability, Tesla deletes 61 or more parts every day, including the production steps associated with those parts, including the software running on or associated with those parts and the industrial controls of creating, installing, and testing those parts. The result is the total part count of all the cars continues to go down. There are about 8,000 parts in a Model 3 now, and it continues to go down. All of the production steps, the software control of those production steps, all the electronics in the car, the software that runs on the car continues to simplify, reining in complexity. But when you're making 60 part changes a day, it is impossible to create an annual budget. You don't know what's necessary to make tomorrow. because you don't yet have the feedback from what you're making right now, today. For that, we use real-time budgeting. There's a step between that I highly recommend for most companies, and we call that Scrum. It means we have less than 30-day budgets. Some companies say they're using Scrum, but still have more than 30-day budgets. They're missing the point of inspecting and adapting in 30-day or less increments. And we call that a sprint. To manage that budget, many companies introduce what's called a product owner. It's their job to make a list of what will deliver all the way to the customer, tested, certified, in production, homologated in 30-day or less increments, and that's called the product backlog. Something Scrum gets really well and is still in Tesla is the idea that all employees have the same accountability. In fact, that's a little weaker. Role was a better description. Title might be even more appropriate. They're all developers. Whether you're a designer, a tester, a builder, a coder, a welder, you're a developer. And that increases the capability for people to be open to cross-functionality. They don't say, well, I only weld. How could I possibly write Python? Or, well, I only write Python. How could I possibly also load metal into robots? But in Tesla, you're all required to be radically cross-functional. Scrum is defined with 11 rules, 3 accountabilities. I liked it when they were called roles better, but I'll say accountabilities. 5 events and 1 activity, and 3 artifacts. Let's see what Tesla does. I consulted to Tesla since 2010, and I was hired into Tesla as the world's authority in Agile hardware in 2020. And I was shocked to see what the fastest rising automotive company of our time is like inside. For Tesla, pace of innovation is the only thing that matters in the long run. And I would like to compare with you the introductory Agile framework, Scrum, to Agile at Tesla. Advanced Agile companies like Tesla do not use the 3 Scrum roles anymore, the 3 Scrum accountabilities. Instead, the teams self-organize around projects and share the responsibilities. Governments require some roles, like a health and safety officer and plant manager. Tesla employees rotate through who is playing these roles, sometimes changing more than once in a week or even in a day. Anyone can play these roles if they have completed the training. The training is provided by apps on everyone's phones. This keeps the company feeling flat, where anyone feels they can do anything. Employees' results are measured automatically by software called digital self-management instead of a manager. There are no performance reviews or promotions. Employees make more money from stock options. Many employees have more than $1 million US and continue working at the company because they enjoy the work and are passionate about the company mission. For Elon Musk, the goal is pace of innovation is the only thing that matters in the long run. To that goal, Elon wishes, as near as possible, 100% of all staff were developers. Hardware developers, software developers. Elon wishes there was zero management, and there is essentially zero management in Tesla. I'll try to explain that a little better. It's very close to 100% engineers, people directly improving the products and services. The second piece is Musk wishes for no waiting, that no one would ever be waiting. They wouldn't be waiting on approval from a manager. So approvals are automated by software that responds in real time. That's actually the strength of Tesla's AI, replacing management with software. And it's not perfect, but it's very good. Musk wants to minimize waiting to know, am I getting the best price for this material, this circuit board, this assembly? For that, there's a piece of software called AutoBidder. AutoBidder was trained on the open market selling energy back to the grid, energy transfers, and then trained on the insurance market, selling insurance premiums. That massive real data set has been a useful training ground to the point that AutoBidder now can evaluate in usually less than a second. There's enough cloud compute. Are you getting the next price? Are you getting the best price? And this allows anyone, anywhere in the company to make purchasing decisions, even large ones, without ever waiting for anything like a manager approval. This reduces waiting. It really is queuing theory, reducing waiting. Okay, what about the 5 events of Scrum? The 5 events of Scrum are like a 30-day or less waterfall. And that's a really good thing for most companies. Most companies take more than a year to deliver new hardware, or even to make a significant update to hardware. A sprint with a forced 30 days maximum length, or even less, is an awesome move for most companies. But that would be way too slow for Tesla, making 60 changes a day, 60 new parts a day. A sprint is a tiny waterfall. We start with planning up front, we have a daily meeting to check progress, we have a review at the end, and our post-mortem, our retrospective. Advanced Agile companies like Tesla do not use the 5 events of Scrum anymore. The employees and artificial intelligence software propose new goals every day. Employees then use the law of 2 feet to walk to any project and join. The law of 2 feet says that you should use your own 2 feet to walk to whichever project you can add the most value. You might stay working on the same project for days or even years, but you could walk to another project at any time without being told to do it. The Agile boards at Tesla are automated by software. It is like a digital Scrum Master creating the board for you. The product owner functions are also mostly software. In this way, nearly 100% of the employees are developers for hardware and software. There are more than 110,000 employees in Tesla now and more than 500,000 suppliers. In Agile, we have these 30-day or less budget increments, these things that we can test, certify, homologate, deploy to the customers. Those are in a list called the product backlog. Then the developers make their own technical plan. How are they going to achieve the product backlog? This we call the sprint backlog in the game of Scrum. Then we have the product itself, the thing we're making, the tested, homologated, legal, ready for sale increment that's ready for the customer. Tesla definitely has an increment. They have an increment every day. In fact, they have more than 1,000 every day, new cars being sold. But they don't use a product backlog and a sprint backlog, not anymore. And sorry, I realized the text was covered by my head, which isn't helping. So I'll try to zoom in here. Maybe this will work better. Tesla does not use product backlogs or divide work into sprints. Tesla focuses on automating safety, quality, and certification tests. Then employees mob to improve the products with real-time feedback from automated tests. This is hardware DevOps. If you have excellent, accurate, automated tests, you cannot deploy faster than your automated tests run. That makes the length your automated tests run and their quality the fundamental bottleneck to releasing value to your customers. I think a lot of the developers in the audience understand this. This is why DevOps is so popular, with its gated check-in, automated integration testing, also before that, automated unit testing, automated regression testing, and automated deployment. Continuous delivery, continuous merge, continuous integration. Tesla does that in hardware. And that is what autopilot has become. Before it was called autopilot, it was called factory mode. And in the factory, it's still called factory mode. What it is each car, from the moment they're assembled, drives themselves through all road legal certification tests. And each car individually applies for road legal certification. What that means is every car can be unique. Each car could have a different metal alloy, a different bumper shape, a different airbag computer, and different software to fire the airbag. And that's okay, because every car is tested fully road legally compliant. Some people falsely believe that if you increase speed, quality decreases. That's only true if you don't run your automated tests or if your automated tests aren't accurate or meaningful. If it takes you a year to test for quality, then a year is your minimum sprint length, your minimum iteration. If it takes you 10 minutes to test for quality and it's the same quality level in the test, then 10 minutes is your maximum iteration, is your minimum iteration length. Another note. Here, I'll scroll down. There. Tesla does not estimate dates. I was never asked to estimate anything in Tesla. Instead, trend lines from each project show a trend to when hundreds of teams will complete their own small project. A small project includes testing and updating production. In this way, each Tesla car in production changes more than 20 times a week. For example, the headlights, taillights, and charge port, and the software controlling them, and the software controlling the assembly steps and certification steps of the Model S and Model X products were changed in 2 days. Electronics, software, metal parts, airbags, seat cushions, even large metal parts are introduced continuously in production every day and sold to customers. This is possible because of extensive automated testing that runs on every single car to ensure safety and legal compliance. Okay, what if you observe a problem in Tesla? Where's the human element? I'm talking all about this software replacing management. Where's the human element? Employee alerts, complaints, and requests are received anytime by chat, email, or face-to-face. If a request appears valid and important to the mission, the request is added to the Justice Board. That's the large agenda of all projects that are funded. Teams self-organize around the Justice Board to reduce risks and accelerate the mission, and this includes addressing the valid employee requests. Another note I'd like to make is all work in Tesla is mob. All of it. Teams self-organize into their mobs. Sometimes it's briefly pairs, but far and away the majority of the time it's mob work with 2 to 5 people. If the mob gets bigger than 5, it typically automatically chooses to split into 2 mobs, maybe of 3 people. Sometimes it's as small as 2. You are allowed to work alone. Almost no one does. The digital self-management shows you the financial efficiency of your work, and there's no manager to put pressure on you or say you're doing a bad job, and there's no promotions. It's all stock price. So really you put pressure on yourself, and you can see how well you're doing or not because of the real-time data coming back, the digital self-management. So you relentlessly attempt to improve. And what this shows you is that you are much more fast, you are higher quality, and you are more creative when you're working in a mob. And when you use the law of 2 feet to join a new area, you need to be in a mob, or how else would you know what to do or even where to start? So as long as one of the people in the mob has an idea of what to try next, the mob can move forward. And this is what creates the radical cross-functionality that Elon Musk is famous for. People who are pretty good at writing Python. They can write a little bit or maybe a lot of embedded C, but they can also do circuit board layouting, make procurement calls, and talk to government officials about certification. It's not that everyone can do everything, but the more months you work in a Musk company, the more and more and more close to being completely full stack in automotive or rockets or neuroscience you become. Agile has flexible budgets. They no longer need a rigid sprint length like Scrum does. Agile is defined as budgets from a couple of weeks to a couple of months with a preference to the shorter time scale. Budgets meaning an reallocation of the purpose of your group, the actual finances, what you're spending money on building. By that definition, Tesla is actually beyond Agile because they make multiple budget reallocations a day, not a couple of weeks to a couple of months. But I don't have a better word for it. I would say Tesla is new Agile, updated Agile, Agile 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, 0.42, Agile 420, something. In Tesla, it's real-time budgets every day, and everyone has authority to spend money. With the digital self-management, everyone has real-time feedback on the efficiency, the financial efficiency of the decisions they're making that day. And it's okay to make mistakes. You then need to work to try to recover from the mistake and get the situation back to at least where it was before and then improve it again. So it's fine to make mistakes. That's actually embraced and supported. But you then need to also take accountability with whoever can help you to improve the situation again. What I'd like to share next, I hope we have a lot of time for Q&A. I hope we have a lot of Q&A, is what has become to something like a skillful product owner or a skillful Scrum Master in Tesla. I'll start with a Scrum Master. Tesla does not have Scrum Masters. What does someone skilled as a Scrum Master or an Agile coach do? Here is an example schedule of me for a company that was just starting Scrum. This is an actual day in my work at previous companies where I'd worked, where they were just beginning their Agile transformation. And my daily schedule in a waterfall organization, where I was one of the first people interested in Agile, at about 9 a.m., I would check email and update the Agile board. Maybe it was Jira, maybe it was Post-it notes on the wall, maybe it was Trello, maybe it was Kirica, maybe it was Scrummy, maybe it was Linoit. Maybe it was a digital whiteboard. I've even had a chance to use the caves, the multi-sided monitor walls, and you wear VR gloves and throw Post-it notes at each other. In any case, we updated the Agile board. At 10 a.m., we would host daily Scrum for one of my projects with anyone who's interested to come. I would invite everyone. It'd be public because I'm trying to create interest in agility. At 11 a.m., I would pair or mob if anyone's interested, try to get real work done and try to learn the real work. At noon, deliver a lunch presentation on the benefits of Agile practices, like retrospectives, to my coworkers. At 1 p.m., I'd check email, I'd update the Agile board. At 2 p.m., I'd pair or mob or solo work if no one was interested to join. At 3 p.m., I'd create a presentation on the benefits of agility for my boss and my boss's boss. At 4 p.m., I'd rehearse the presentation and I'd email a request to give the presentation to my boss and anyone my boss invited. In a waterfall organization, sometimes it's viewed as inappropriate to directly invite your boss's boss. So I would prepare the presentation for my boss and boss's boss, and I would invite my boss and say, and anyone else you choose to invite. And it's up to them if they thought they would invite their boss's boss. And at 5 p.m., I'd host a happy hour with snacks to invite anyone in the company, and even outside the company if I'm allowed, to see my Agile team space, virtual or in person. Well, what if the company already has 353 running well? A day in the life in a company like that for me, like when I was working with Bill Gates, at 9 a.m., I would facilitate daily Scrum and then the parking lot. At 10 a.m., I would follow up on implementing on any impediment. For example, a face-to-face meeting with the head of IT security might be the impediment. Maybe the developers don't have access to some information they need. At 11 a.m., I would join the mob with the team and try to get work done. At noon, we would have a team lunch. At 1 p.m., I would join and mob with the team. At 2 p.m., we would have Refinement Cafe. Everybody would get a drink they like, and we'd spend 15 minutes improving one of the items in the product backlog, splitting it, estimating it, asking questions about it, making code mocks. At 3 p.m., a user story map of new features requests with the team, and maybe 3 customers join through video chat if we're lucky as we make the user story map. 4 p.m., likely we'd do another Agile tool, an Agile game, for example, a dependency map of a legacy bug fix with the team, and maybe another related team. At 5 p.m., I would join a mob with the team, and then we'd go home. At Tesla, we don't have Agile coaches, we don't have Scrum Masters. As operator of the Agile program at Tesla, this is what I did all day. Tesla is what I would call an advanced Agile organization, or true Agile. I mean, it's way past the Agile Manifesto. It's way past a couple of weeks to a couple of months with a preference for the shorter time scale. It's at hours and minutes, sometimes even seconds. 4 a.m. I would walk into the factory. I should be clear. Software in most companies is done in an office. Design in most companies is done in an office, and production is done in a factory. In Tesla, all of those are in the factory. If you're doing software, you're in the factory. You're actually sitting on the concrete floor in a circle with other people with laptops or looking at one big screen. The goal is for you to be within touching distance or at most 3 meters from the machine and materials that you're affecting. So if you're programming autopilot, the goal would be to be within touching distance or 3 meters maximum of the machines that are installing the autopilot chips into the cars, or the machines that are making the autopilot chips. At 4 a.m., I would go into the factory and I would walk the processes that fed the work I did yesterday. I would take notes and I'd possibly join the mob, learning the work that created the parts, assemblies, and software that I had consumed yesterday. At 5 a.m., I would go somewhere in the factory and I would tag in. I would join the mob, and someone tagging out would hand me their tools. Now, this was not a ritual. It was very casual, but it was very important. This created shared ownership. No one owned their own tools. Well, I mean, I guess you could. It was not allowed. But even if you did, you would hand it to the next person because you know this tool is working right now, whether it's a laptop, whether it's a wrench, whether it's a robot, or whether it's a tablet, and currently we're reading through instructions to reprogram one of the robots, whatever it is, that would be handed directly. Nothing is yours, it's the team's. And that was reinforced by this casual activity at the start and end of every tag in and tag out. All development in Tesla is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Software, hardware, all development. It's all in at least 12-hour shifts. So software development never stops, all around the clock, every day of the year. Same with hardware development, same with production. Or that's the intention. I mean, there are supply chain disruptions and the line can be shut down. Shanghai was just shut down for several weeks. But the intention is to never stop. At 6 a.m. to 4 p.m., I would be pairing, swarming, and mobbing. 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. 7 a.m., and actually about every 15 minutes, but I wrote 7 a.m. here for simplicity, everyone would look up at all the boards all around the factory. And they're also on our phones, but it's easier to look at a board when your hands are building things or typing. And I would look at the Justice board. It didn't have a name in Tesla. After I left Tesla, I named it after myself. Please forgive me. But it had no name in Tesla that I ever heard. And I have made some enhancements, I think, since then, from what I learned working in Tesla. So maybe it now is my own product. But in any case, I'd look at the board, which I do now call the Justice board, and see, am I in the area that is delivering the most value? Should I use the law of 2 feet to reallocate somewhere else? There's no manager that's going to tell me you need to go to another place, or it'd be good if you were somewhere else. It's up to each individual to choose to use the law of 2 feet. So I'd glance up at flow diagrams and information radiators and decide if I should move to a different area to add more value. And I wrote 6 a.m. to 4 p.m., but notice I tagged in at 5 a.m. Really, it's mobbing and sometimes pairing, but mostly mobbing from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m., 12 hours. Yes, there's breaks and there's a lunch, but all work time is mob, 12 hours. Then I would tag out and I would hand tools to someone tagging in. 6 p.m., I would walk the process that received the products I made today. So I'd follow the products we made or where the code we wrote is going. And I would look to where that product or that part or that software went. And I would take notes. And I would possibly join the mob to learn how people are experiencing the stuff that I'd made earlier. And then I'd head home. The Agile at Tesla is what I primarily did was updating definition of ready and definition of done and helping train the artificial intelligence algorithms on definition of ready and definition of done, which allowed the teams to work more and more and more independently. And teams were fully permeable. It's not like you had stable teams. You have products and goals and missions, and people self-organize around those. And people in practice would stay until at least a version is done. Some versions were done as fast as 3 hours, sometimes even faster. But some versions take months or even years. So some people would work on the same product or service or software for months or even years. But some people would work on one for 3 hours until it got to done. And then they might choose to continue staying in that area for future versions. But they might use the law of 2 feet and go somewhere else. What about product ownership? Tesla does not have product owners. What does someone skilled as a product owner do? Tesla uses what's called Justice's law. The products they're making form the structure of the company. So there is not a software organization. There are products that have software. So there's developers for the Model 3 and the autopilot computer, and there's developers for Tesla AI as a product. But there is not a software group. There's not a mechanical engineering group. There's mechanical engineers working on Starship for SpaceX. There's mechanical engineers working on braking systems for Tesla Model X. But there's not a mechanical engineering group. When you have a skills group, it creates a queue, a wait state. And according to what we know about queuing theory, that's the slowest possible structure. The fastest structure and the fastest innovating and the most efficient is when the products and the modules that compose the products make the structure of the company. So if you have a Model X, you have a Model X group. And if the Model X has a battery pack, you have a battery pack group. And that includes software, procurement, mechanical engineering, software engineering, even marketing in those groups, which is called Justice's Law. And you can see it here in SpaceX. Here is a week-long sprint at SpaceX, what they're building. You can see the orbital launch tower team is consuming orbital launch tower sections from another team that makes orbital launch tower sections. Now, none of these sections are the same. Each one is an experiment to be lighter, cheaper, safer, more durable, have more and more useful embedded electronics, embedded cooling tubes, embedded fueling tubes, sensors, weather controls, lightning mitigations, seismic loading dampeners. Every one is an enhancement over the last. And that's made by a team, the Orbital Launch Tower Section team. Then the Orbital Launch Tower group takes those, assembles those, and operates it. They're like operations, like DevOps for the launch tower sections. Both of those consume the orbital launch table, which is the known stable interface for Booster and Starship. Booster and Starship both bolt onto the orbital launch table. And it's not just bolt. There's plenty of electronics connections, cooling connections, fueling connections, sensors, measuring devices, etc. This known stable interface ensures that Starship can attach to Booster and Starship can attach to orbital launch table. So this is the continuous integration. And if you watch all of the YouTube channels that are following Starship's production in Boca Chica, Texas, you can see these integrations happen multiple times per week. Booster is its own group. The Booster and Starship both consume Raptor engines. They use the same engine. And they both consume barrel sections and tank header and tank bottom sections. A rocket inside is essentially a series of high compression tanks that go through intense temperature and pressure changes. They're some of the most sophisticated material science humans have ever done. So there's a tank header and tank bottom group, and their job is to make different tank header and tank bottoms every day, each one an experiment to be better than the last. Then there's a team that makes the barrel sections, smaller diameter and larger diameter. And these are all different. Every single one is different. And they have embedded electronics, their own software, their own production tooling, their own software that runs on the production tooling, their own X-ray machines. They make their own X-ray machines that automatically swivel around these to X-ray for weld defects. They make their own orbital welders, their friction stir welders, which are some of the largest in the world. And they're definitely the most sophisticated. They're all run by AI now. Every time the X-ray and welder makes a pass, and the X-ray and welder are now one co-located piece now, they feed an artificial intelligence stack to continue updating how the welding processes are done. Booster and Starship both consume barrel sections and tank header and footer sections and Raptor engines. Raptor engines, the rocket engines, the most powerful engines ever made by humans. The barrel sections and the tank headers and footers are like suppliers, internal suppliers that are also SpaceX teams. Starship, a new Starship is made approximately once per month, and they've never been the same. They are all an experiment to be lighter, faster, cheaper, more powerful, safer. Booster is on a much slower cadence. We're on Starship 24 now. The Starship program began approximately 24 months ago. There's about one every month being made. Booster is on Booster 4. This diagram shows Starship 21, but they're on Starship 24 now. They're still on Booster 4. So these teams do not have to stay synchronized. They have to maintain compatibility on the interfaces. These interfaces are updated every version, but as long as they maintain backwards compatibility or an adapter is added to maintain backwards compatibility, the entire Starship ecosystem continues to emerge. Creating these independent parallel projects is what people skilled as product owners do now at SpaceX. What they do is say, how do we cut the Starship program into parallel executable projects that don't have to wait on each other? So we have the maximum rate of innovation, and after that, financial efficiency. Pace of innovation is the only thing that matters in the long run. Financial efficiency is next most important. Well, I mean, after safety. Safety is even more important than those. So someone skilled as a product owner, their job is to look at the concept of a rocket and say, how many independent parallel executing projects could there be if we introduce some interfaces? And how can I work with the teams in Mob to establish the version 1 of those interfaces and then continuously improve those interfaces? And then the company restructures continuously around those parallel executable projects. Those projects are not only modules. Here it's easier to see the modules: barrel section, tank header, tank bottom, Raptor engine, Starship, booster, orbital launch mount, orbital launch table, orbital launch tower section, and orbital launch tower. It's easier to see those. But there are also missions like land acquisition, acquire this more set of land. That's a group that self-organizes around that. There's government compliance missions. The Justice Board is full of data of many different project types, not just software modules, not just hardware modules, but also factory components, entire products at a time, lean Kaizen operations, retrospective results that have created Kaizen moments, etc. And the Raptor engine program is now on 2-day iterations. They design, test fire, and install on a rocket a new designed Raptor engine every 2 days from design to install. Everyone, absolutely, thank you very much. What I would like to do now is see what questions or answers might be coming up and learn from you what's important to you. Comments are also welcome. Feel free to say, Joe, that's not right. I'm ready to learn. But questions are also invited.
Of course, Joy, thank you so much for your invaluable insights and tips you've shared with us. So surely we do have a few questions from the audience. And actually, what was the most exciting moment of working at Tesla?
Oh, wow. That's pretty easy, unfortunately. There's this moment I was working with one of the teams. I could say one of my teams, but no one really owns anything. So one of the teams, let's be more respectful. And we developed our own tool to address something, to fix a problem. And we made a tool kit. And we decided that I was going to hold it in my teeth while I crawled inside a 6-story tall robot while it was moving. And that's what I did. I army crawled inside this robot while it's moving around with this kit that we'd made. And then I'm like doing the fix. It was like out of a really intense movie. Working at Tesla is the closest I have ever been to being in a war. And I hope I'm never in a war, but it's completely safe. It's like the safest war ever. Like no one gets hurt, and it's that intense. You have no idea what you're going to need to do next. And you might have to push your physical limits. You're definitely pushing your mental limits, but that was the most exciting moment.
Thank you. That's pretty hilarious. And are there any cases in Tesla that you'd like to change or modify?
Yes, there are. So the 12-hour workdays are absolutely exciting, and they actually are sustainable, but I think that limits the talent pool. There's some people that would be a really good fit for SpaceX, for Neuralink, for OpenAI, for Tesla, but they really want to be an active parent. They really want to learn to play piano. They want to cook or go camping a lot, or they're also an artist. And I think that's important. Or maybe their energy just isn't there. Maybe they have 2 really good hours a day, and they're really useful people for 2 good hours a day. I think an opportunity that goes even beyond what I learned in the Musk companies, which is the fastest I've ever seen, but an opportunity is to make it even more cost-effectively luxurious, to make it even more cost-effectively pampering, so that for wherever your energy is, you can contribute in a meaningful way. And this is something I'm pursuing right now. In theory, we could get most of the value of a Musk 12-hour workday, 12 plus hour. I mean, it's often longer, like you saw in my day, working 3 8-hour shifts, 3 different groups working 3 8-hour shifts. You could still accomplish continuous development, and even 4 6-hour shifts. So we could even just keep reducing, and maybe we could get 80% of the value. Yes, we would have more context switching, and context switching is awful. It really loses inertia. But maybe we can mitigate that with some of the self-documenting practices and digital self-management. So if I could change anything, it would be make it even more cost-effectively luxurious. So even more types of people can engage with even less time or even less passion. I mean, working in Tesla is kind of like the Olympics of work. And you really do have to treat yourself like a professional athlete. Like, you eat differently. Like, you ask someone else to check your mail for you. I mean, you are in it, right? And I wish the company was open to people who have a more casual interest but still skill. And I think that's the opportunity to grow even more, to achieve mega scale.
Thank you. That sounds impressively, really. So, and here we have a pretty curious question. Yeah, actually, what happens when every Tesla employee wants to join the work on the new car and nobody wants to work on support of all the cars? So
Right,
no
right,
managers,
okay.
no pushes. What happens next?
Right, because there's not a manager saying you need to do this. So what happens? What I observed is you have this list of all the projects, this justice board, and it lists things like Gigafactory. The Gigafactory is a product. Then Cybertruck production engineering and production ramp. And you have Tesla Model Y, enhancements in production and production. So you have this list of things, all the stuff we're doing. And there's trivial things too, like, can someone figure out how to get a robot to put the insulation tape where your feet go in the car? Because right now it's done by a bunch of people leaning in at a weird angle, right? So you have these small items too on the board. Well, they're ranked by financial efficiency. And if you're working on something with low financial efficiency, everyone can see it. And it's not like someone comes up and says, you really should stop working on that. But you can see it and everyone else can see it. Everyone can see it on their phones. Everyone else can see it on every monitor all around because they're auto-sorted. So you want to be near the top, right? So the problem is, if everyone is working on the top, the other items would automatically start increasing in financial efficiency, in necessariness, in need. So you get real-time feedback on how to load balance. Because you can see it, people do it. If you think of a game on your phone, I actually haven't played a game on my phone in a few years, but I did before, and I've seen them. They don't come with a book anymore. They teach you how to play them in a fun way. And often they make it so you can like tap anything and you don't immediately lose. At least not at the beginning. You don't immediately die or lose. You can tap anything to kind of figure it out. And when you tap a good thing, stars come out, maybe a score goes up, maybe you just get a good sound, and you go, okay, the game is telling me that's good. And the game teaches you how to play the game. What digital self-management has done is make it more like that. It's not perfect. In some areas, it's basically perfect, but it's more like that across Tesla. So you get feedback, like a good sound, like stars. It's often a heat map and you get better colors on the heat map. It's kind of like you're looking like Predator. But anyway, you get good colors when you do something that helps the company. And the AI is actually pretty good at communicating that to you. Because you have that real-time feedback, people almost always, nearly 100% of the time, act in the best interest of the company. I do think humans fundamentally want to do good and are mission-driven if we only have useful feedback. It more happens that we don't have feedback on the company's suffering when we don't all work on the most useful things. So by making it very clear what's useful, people, in my experience at Tesla, always did allocate to what was most useful, not just the shiniest new thing.
Okay, Okay, thank you. Thanks. So, and probably the last question for today, actually, how employees make the decision which group to join? Some kind of piece of insider information.
Sure, sure. Okay, so you have this board that tells you where people are needed, and then you think, would I add value? That's what we're asked to think. Where would I add the most value? Where would you add the most value? And use the law of 2 feet to go there. Now, value can be right now, you know the most about it. So Andrej Karpathy is exceptionally excellent at artificial intelligence development and an inspirational, charismatic person that brings out good development skills and all the people they get near, all the people they mob with. So Andrej almost always chooses to work on Tesla AI. Sometimes Andrej is building robots and drilling metal and mixing chemicals, but most of the time Andrej is working on Tesla AI because that's where Andrej is delivering the most value. But sometimes people will choose a new area because they want to learn, especially if it's related to what they have been doing, so they can attach more knowledge onto their knowledge tree. And the goal is to become radically cross-functional. Elon Musk joins every mob everywhere. Elon looks to see where is the bottleneck now. And if Elon can figure out where it is, that's where Elon goes. And Elon works there all day, more than 14 hours. Elon mobs straight. And then when Elon gets sleepy, Elon takes out a sleeping bag there and sleeps there. When Elon wakes up, Elon tries to ascertain, is this still the bottleneck? If it is, Elon continues working there. If not, Elon goes to where the bottleneck is. As a result, Elon talks very deeply at a deep engineering level because Elon is doing the work, not asking for reports, not in a meeting, doing the work. And now everywhere across Neuralink, OpenAI, the Boring Company, SpaceX, and Tesla. And the amount of radical cross-functionality that many people in the Musk companies has become is exciting. It's exciting enough that people will often choose to allocate just to continue building knowledge on and building their human capability.
Thank you so much. We do appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for your valuable responses. And thank you so much for staying with us, for standing with Ukraine. And we are so honored.
It is my honor and privilege to collaborate with Intellias. Thank you so very much. If anyone had a question or a comment that we didn't have time for, please tag Intellias and please at Joe Justice on Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook. I respond fastest on Twitter, but I respond to all those platforms. I'd be happy to keep the conversation with Intellias going and you if you tag me so I can reply. You can see all of my courseware. My CSM is nothing like most people's certified Scrum Master course anymore because there's only about 2 hours on Scrum. The rest is more advanced. And the Agile Hardware Developer course that you saw 1/12 of now. Those are on abi-agile.com. That's ABI for Agile Business Institute -agile.com. And my book is on LeanPub, and you can choose the price you pay. It's called Scrum Master by Joe Justice. There's a minimum that LeanPub enforces. I think it's like €4, something like that. But you can choose the price you pay. They recommend €20, but you can throttle it. And the book's pretty good. So please consider it. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Intellias.
Thank you.